Welcome to MLS Round-Up from We Are Soccer. I'm your host, Craig Hearn, and as usual for our MLS talks, we're chatting with soccer syndicate scout Brooks Lambier. Today, Brooks and I will be chatting about Matt Turner's rumored move to Arsenal, some of the moves that are being made in and around the MLS during the offseason here, and then we'll look at the U.S. men's national team games that are coming up in the next week. All right, Brooks, how are you, man? You been all right?
Yeah, good. We're trying to survive this cold winter. For some reason, all this cold weather just came right in Michigan, and it's single digits in the morning. So, bundling up.
Not fun, this cold snap that's come through.
Yeah.
All right, man. Why don't we jump in? There's been a lot of moves that's in and around the MLS. I know there's some that you and I have texted about where they're happening and players that are going places. What moves in the last couple of weeks have really surprised you or you've liked?
Yeah. So I think, so let's kind of go back to, Charlotte FC and the expansion draft. I think some interesting moves, in my opinion, were, Ishmael Tajiri-Shradi, being traded from Charlotte to LAFC. I think that was a good pickup for LAFC and kind of, you can kind of see the Atuesta being sold and Bob Bradley leaving and in that expansion draft as well, Tristan Blackman was drafted, then traded to Vancouver, and, Charlotte collecting international spots and GAM and TAM and such, the monopoly money that MLS teams trade with each other, they can use inside the league and everything. And you can, you buy down contracts and all that fun stuff, we can get into another time. But, I think with the change and what we've kind of really seen and developed with LAFC, again, then getting Kellen Acosta from Colorado, and again, GAM and TAM being traded for that one and such. But LAFC and then signing Ilie Sanchez from SKC have made some very interesting moves to strengthen their team and to give Steve Trundle a little bit of maybe a different look.
Yeah.
A couple with some of their young guys and, that obviously they dealt Bryce Duke to Inter Miami. But you can just see kind of the roster turning a bit and there's a change. And I'm interested to see kind of if there's another big signing, to go up top with Carlos Vela, if they can get some, their goal scorer there. So they've made some interesting, a lot of the moves LAFC have made have really caught my eye.
Sure. And it looks like Trundle is trying to make it his team, right? He's trying to get away from the Bradley team that they had and he's trying to make it his own, and he's making moves, as you said. I mean, there's some dominoes there. So good.
Yeah, so those moves for me have caught my eye. I think one that's recent that happened on the 22nd of January was the trade of Kacper Przybyłko from Philly to Chicago Fire. I think we can say probably Kacper was probably surrounded by better players in Philly than maybe what the Fire currently have. But with a couple additions to the Fire roster, and you have a guy like Kacper Przybyłko who's not only dangerous in and around goal but can come and combine, and he gives them a different look than I think what they've had really in the past with Baric and some of the other guys they've tried at the center forward spot that have just kind of not been what they thought they maybe could be. So I think that's a very interesting move then along with the homegrown players they've signed. And that's a club that's trying to instill their homegrown players into their first team and give them playing time so they can represent Chicago kids represent the city of Chicago, which is a great thing. I'm a strong believer in that your homegrowns, the kids in your area should represent their club that they love. So I think that was an interesting trade that the Chicago Fire had made. Sean Davis, not resigning with Red Bull. I think signing as a free agent with Nashville. You have Dax McCarty, Sean Davis, and the Costa Rican guy. No, not Costa Rican. Anibal Godoy. In the middle, those three, and Godoy, kind of the guy breaking stuff up, with Dax McCarty kind of running the show a bit, and so that added a little bit of depth to their midfield. So I think that is going to make Nashville an interesting team, and Sean Davis was always very much key cog in the midfield for NYRB, and that was a big pickup in my opinion for Nashville. Then, obviously I think the Revs moves, just kind of getting a veteran like Omar Gonzalez to kind of help with, he can fill in at times. He can give Henry Kessler and Farrell and the other center backs a little veteran advice at times. And the addition of Sebastian Lletget, I think trading with the Galaxy has really giving them something interesting going forward. Sebastian can play wide, he can play in the midfield. It's a good mix of kind of adding someone that could be a game changer to how they were last year.
I like the Sebastian Lletget pickup. I'm a big fan of his. I know there's quite a few people out there who aren't, but I'm a fan of his. I like him in the center of the park, and it's going to be interesting to see how him and Carlos Gil get along, how that little tandem works out. But that pickup surprised me, but I was very pleasantly surprised. I think that's a great move for him, and it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts.
Yeah. And I think it makes him very dangerous, in my opinion, because you have two guys now like Carlos Hill, who likes to roam and play centrally. You can have Sebastian Lletget play as a wide midfielder or winger, have him play with Carlos Hill as a double 10 and kind of overload the midfield a bit. And we have some playmakers, and they're both playmaking type guys. So, and you get the fullbacks wide with Brandon Bynes and Juan Jones. So that makes things very interesting with pace. So I think it's going to be interesting, because I don't want to say, can they maybe beat their point total from last year? I mean, that would be absurd if they could, but maybe they don't, but they're just as dangerous, if that's kind of how you want to put it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it looks like they're making a run at trying to beat that point total from last year, record that they set, right? That's one you mentioned earlier. I want to come back to was Kellen Acosta moving from Colorado to LAFC. He was not happy with that move. He put it out there I think it was like 2 days later that there was inquiries for him to go to Europe from European teams, and he wanted that. He wants to go play in Europe. Colorado refused that. They traded him to LAFC. He did not want out of Colorado to another MLS team. He wanted to go to Europe. What are your thoughts on that move? Do you have any insight in behind that? And was it just that was the best offer that Colorado could get, and they didn't really care to fulfill Kellen Acosta's wishes to go play in Europe?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think sometimes when you look at these moves, it's kind of what's best financially for a club. And you kind of realize that, you can, like I said, you can get that monopoly GAM and TAM money, from, clubs, and then transfer fees are included. And, maybe, obviously I think it would have been if Colorado sold them, Dallas would have got the transfer fee. Now, if LAFC, does a transfer into Europe for Kellen, then Colorado gets the transfer fee plus all the GAM and TAM money they just got, which was like over $1 million. So, I think sometimes that's how it plays out. It's a financial decision. It's a move. It's a strategic finance move. And I mean, I think the teams that can do that are very clever. Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't always work to what the player wants it to be. But I mean, hey, you got a guy in Steve Cherundolo who has connections with Bundesliga teams. You play well for a couple of years. Maybe, John Thornton's not afraid to go out and sell guys and buy guys, and LAFC's not afraid to spend money. So, maybe that gives Kellen, he was close to a run last year with Colorado to win MLS Cup. Like I said, the way the roster's kind of going, maybe that gives LAFC a brand new start, brand new faces. And I'm sure the city of LA will embrace Kellen Acosta for the kind person he is, and what the ability he has to be a playmaker and make a difference on the field for the LAFC.
100% agree with you on that.
Yeah. So, and then just a few other ones, trying not to drag on. I think the Paul Arriola move was huge from, two moves that DC United made this week was their young homegrown player, Kevin Paredes, who's been with a few of the youth national teams as a left back for DC United. Wolfsburg buying him for $7 million. And then I think that was a very, a good move. And we say MLS is a selling league, and sometimes it looks like it isn't, but sometimes it is. And this is a continuation of the Americans going over to Germany, England, and this is good. This is what we want. We want our kids and clubs to buy them. So then, these are the future. Maybe Kevin Paredes is the next future left back behind Anthony Robinson, and he jumps Sam Bynes, and he jumps George Bello, and George Bello's got an interest from, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about the men's national team stuff, but it's good to have depth. I mean, and and we'll talk about it later. We can dive more into this, and national team stuff, but and then I think the move with Paul Arriola getting dealt to DC United, and DC United getting, obviously again, some money so then they can go spend on foreign players or buy down contracts. And,
Yeah.
It's a good move for Paul. And I think he adds something that FC Dallas has been missing. They need a goal scorer, a playmaker in the front and final third, to go with Jesus Ferreira, who obviously he's played with the men's national team with. So this is a good move. And I like that teams are starting to trade players within the league and willing to spend on other players. Like I enjoy that teams are doing this, because that means they value the players within the league that they want to go get, rather than just always grabbing international players.
Right. You kind of brought it up there, the amount of players who are heading out to Europe. It's become quite a pipeline. I did not see this many moves, this many names from MLS players and American players heading out to Europe. It's crazy. Every other day we're hearing about someone who's moving out to Europe from the MLS, and it's good. But it's also, well, what are we going to be left with? We're going to be left with a watered down league, and we're left with a product that's not as good. Yes, the U.S. men's national team might benefit from it, but how's the MLS going to be? How's it going to look in another 2-3 years? Watered down, the competition's not going to be as great. That's not what the owners are buying into right now. So it's interesting. That's something I think we have to talk about in another video, because there's a lot of players heading out, and there's a lot of money coming in for those players. And MLS in USA has become a pipeline of just talent that's going out the door. So we can jump into that in another video, because there's a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah. And then just 3 more moves I want to touch on. I think a big one, and let's give props to, we always say, hey, a lot of second division guys don't get bumped up into first division teams. So the trade with DC United getting Hayden Sargis, Sac Republic academy player that they signed that has played with the first team. A shout out to that move, because just to show people that there is movement, that teams are starting to sign, whether it's a goalkeeper, getting goalkeepers on loans, or signing players from USL championships to MLS. There is value in USL championship that kids are playing there, and they can eventually make it to the first division. And then the 2 moves I want to shout out is Albert Rusnak signing as a free agent with Seattle. I think that makes Seattle a very dangerous team. It gives them different options. And Rusnak was very, again, kind of like a legit player, very tough to mark, roams around, playmaker, can, maybe not goal scorer, but you throw him in there with Ladero, Rui Diaz, Jordan Morris is playing in there. I mean, geez, that's a dangerous team. And again, if you want to pick Seattle every year to go to the MLS Cup, because usually they find their way into the Western Conference Finals with Portland, just because, they are great at doing that. That's definitely going to make Seattle dangerous. And then the big one, Insigne from, moving to TFC in the summertime from Napoli. So that'll be very interesting.
That is going to be really interesting. I mean, he's only 30 years old, I believe, and that's a big move. And he could have gone for big contracts pretty much anywhere in Europe, and he chose to come play in the MLS in Toronto. That's a big move. It's a great move. It looks really good. I hope it pans out. I really do. I hope he can bring 1 or 2 more players with him in the next year or 2 and show them, hey, this league is good. It'd be great, because obviously we've seen a lot of international players come to the MLS at the end of their career. Wayne Rooney, Gerrard, Lampard, Beckham. We've seen those guys come here, and it's not as good as what you were hoping, and they last a year or 2 and then they're out. I hope Insigne can last a couple of years, 4 or 5 years, and bring others over and show them that this is a really competitive, good league to be in. So I like that you finished with that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. And one thing I did listen to the recent podcast with Grant Wall, and he interviewed Bob Bradley. I think what was great was, and a lot of us, sometimes we don't travel to other cities, we don't know. So there are actually a lot of Italians in and around Toronto. So this was a move, for that, just because there's such a plethora of a diversity of people from everywhere across the world and around Toronto. So that move. And then I'm curious if Bob Bradley's working on his Italian, if he's got to speak Italian with Insigne. I'm sure his son Michael can help a little bit, because he played at Roma. But it's going to be a good one. I'm interested to see how Bob's going to use Insigne when he comes in, and it's going to be fun to watch him, work with him like he worked with Carlos Vela at LAFC. Because again, my opinion, Bob's the best American coach, I think, American coach out there.
Sure, I'm one of the best, for sure, absolutely. Obviously, just so people are aware, Insigne won't be there until July. He is finishing out his current contract in Italy and won't join up at TFC until early July. So yeah, another big move that hasn't happened yet, but has been rumored for the past, I would say, week, 10 days. New England Revolution goalie, which is 2021 MLS goalkeeper of the year, Matt Turner, is being rumored to be on his way to Arsenal. Arsenal, from what we understand, have tabled an official £5 million, which is about $8 to $9 million, a bid for Matt Turner. It looks like New England and MLS are going to hold out for a little bit more money. I think this will happen. It is when Arsenal, who are a big club, they have a lot of money. When they want someone like this, they'll go get him. No matter what it takes, it'll come down to the wire here, and at the transfer window. Is this a good move for Matt Turner, 27 years old, moving to Arsenal? Because Arsenal already have a number one goalkeeper in Aaron Ramsdale, who they purchased last year for a large quantity of money. And I'm sorry, Matt Turner is very good, but Aaron Ramsdale is legit and will not be replaced, if not for injury or just really bad form. But I don't see that happening. Is this a good move for Matt Turner?
For me, I'd like to see him stay at a place where he can start. So if that's at New England, and this is obviously must be a Stan Kroenke thing, because obviously he owns the Colorado Rapids, so he's familiar with MLS and, I think owning the Avalanche and some other franchises, and the LA Rams he owns as well. So he's very immersed in the American sports market, but also MLS. So, listen, to me, it doesn't make sense. If you want to make the move, make the jump to where you're going to play. So whether that's a championship team, whether that's a lower, EPL team that needs a goalkeeper, a Bundesliga side. I mean, I would love to see a lot of field players make the jump to the Bundesliga. And Zach Steffen got loaned out there for a little bit to play. I believe it was Hoffenheim he played with.
Sounds right. I can't remember.
No, it was Freiburg. Maybe it was Freiburg.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah, we would. We need to. But I would like to see more goal, because the Bundesliga is a very solid league, and to start in the Bundesliga means you are a top goalkeeper. And I would love to see more Bundesliga teams go after American keepers. And I think Matt Turner really fits the profile for the typical Bundesliga keeper, because the German goalkeepers tend to be big and built very much like how Matt Turner is.
Matt Turner, one of the knocks on Matt Turner is obviously he doesn't start for the U.S. men's national team. Zach Steffen officially, I believe, is number one on the depth chart. That's because Steffen is, I think, equally with his hands is just as good as Turner, but his feet are what separate him and Turner. And Turner does not have doesn't have great feet. Let's go with that. So it's unusual for Arsenal to be coming after someone like Turner. Maybe it's because of the American connection and Stan Kroenke there. I don't know, but it's unusual. So essentially, if Turner does go to Arsenal, we will have the men's number one and number two, U.S. men's national team, number one and number two goalies as backups. We do know that the upcoming games here for the U.S. men's national team, Matt Turner will be starting in Columbus because Zach Steffen has been left behind in London. In England. I think he was due to fly out of London. That's where I read. But he's in England because he had a stiff back, so he hasn't made the trip over.
Yes.
He hasn't actually played in a game since January 7th, so that's over 2 weeks. And before that, it was like a week or two prior. He hasn't been getting a lot of time.
Yep.
I would hate for the U.S. men's national team in the next year to have both goalies who haven't played in a proper game than a couple of months, because it could very well happen.
Well, it's what's your belief? I mean, people have different beliefs on this matter. That while I'm practicing against higher quality and higher shots. Therefore it's going to make me a better keeper when I go in. But being a goalkeeper myself is practice can't substitute real gameplay.
Right. Yep.
It's just not. You don't get the same situations in training as you do in games, where you have to make that one huge save or two huge saves that define if you win or draw the game or lose. So, I want to see our men's national team goalkeepers starting somewhere. It's important. It's, and I think Steffen needs to move on if he's never going to get an opportunity. And again, we can say, hey, you're getting all this great training and shots from these top players, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't start a game and or jump Ederson at Man City and take his spot. So, if you can't do that and you're, what's the point?
Agreed. We're in both on the same page there. Yeah, you can play with the best players in the world in practice, but it's in the game. That's where you really earn your trade, and that's where you really get. If you're not playing in the games, I'm sorry, practice it's just not real. So anyway,
and that's why there's good practice keepers, and those practice keepers are usually not game keepers. That's why they're third on your depth chart. So
I mean, that's it. That's absolutely it.
Yes.
Speaking of the U.S. men's national team, we know they have 3 World Cup qualifying games coming up in the next week here. They kick off officially in Columbus Thursday against El Salvador. It's like the temperature is supposed to be low 30s. So I'm sure El Salvador is really looking forward to that. Yes. Turner will be in goal. He's the number 1 goalkeeper, as we talked about with Zach Steffen back home in England. Why don't we quickly run through some of the roster here for the U.S. men's national team? I'm more interested in your thoughts on the MLS guys. So why don't we just quickly, I'll list out some of the MLS guys who are on the U.S. men's national team, and then we can kind of talk about them. So in the defender, we'll go with goalies first. Sean Johnson from New York City FC. We got Gabriel Slonina. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. There's been a lot of talk about him.
17-year-old.
A lot of
national
talk
for Poland.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk, and Tony Meola's come in with high praise for him.
Yeah, Buffon equivalent, huh? That's saying a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously Matt Turner for the Revolution, as we just talked about, who could be on his way to Arsenal. Defenders, we got Brooks Lennon from Atlanta United, and Miles Robinson from Atlanta United, and Walker Zimmerman for Nashville. What are your thoughts on those?
Yedlin could be coming back to MLS. There's been rumors that maybe he reunites with Columbus because Caleb Porter coached him at Akron. So there are rumors that he wants to leave Turkey and is looking for other jobs. So
I had not heard that rumor. That would be pretty good. I think he's doing all right out in Galatasaray, but that'd be good to see him back in MLS. I had not heard that. Do you think do you see any of those players we just named off starting in the next couple of games here? Maybe a Walker Zimmerman or a Miles Robinson?
Oh yeah, of course. Listen, if we go from the 4 center backs here, I was never a big fan of Mark McKenzie when he was at Philadelphia. I think he's playing in Belgium because, Belgium's not the EPL and it's not the Bundesliga. Mm-hmm. And no offense. I'm not trying to, crush Mark here and just like, and be all negative, but it was a good player at Wake Forest for a year. Philly, he did a job. I just don't know if he is national team material. I think, if John Brooks was in better shape as he's finally gotten into form a little bit. I think, I'd rather take Brooks over McKenzie. But listen, I could see Zimmerman and Robinson starting. I could see Miles and Chris Richards starting from Hoffenheim because, again, Chris Richards has done a phenomenal job being loaned out and playing consistently and doing well, and that's what you want from your defenders. So yes, so Brooks Lennon, I don't think he gets a shot. I think you're looking Dest ahead of him and Cannon. So no way for me. It obviously depends how they're going to play, but I see if Destin and Cannon play, Dest on the left and Cannon on the right, because, Dest is okay with that. And, that'll be interesting to see.
Agreed. Well, let's go into the midfield. So we got Kellen Acosta from LAFC. We've got Sebastian Lletget, obviously New England Revolution player there, has just made his move. And then Christian Roldan from Seattle. So I honestly, I don't see any of those players playing in the midfield. I just don't see that happening. Maybe Kellen Acosta will come in at the end. Sebastian Lletget could always come in at the end for a couple of minutes, but I don't see those guys really getting off the bench ahead of Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, or whoever else we want to drop in there. But I think those guys will be pretty firmly planted on the bench.
Yep. No, 100%. And it's the 3: Adams, McKennie, and Yunus Musa. They're going to play. 100%.
With that being said, there are 3 games in 6 days, excuse me. We got to play, we play obviously El Salvador, then we go to Canada on Sunday, and then Honduras in Minnesota. So there is playing time to be had. 3 games in 6 days. There's playing time to be had there.
Yeah. And I guess it's with Greg, it's going to be interesting. How do you want to structure the midfield? So, maybe if I know I need those 3 Adams, Eunice, and Weston in the Canadian game, because that's the tougher opponent and we need points from that game. Canada, no Alphonso Davies, but,
right.
They gave you a good run in Nashville last time and you only drew. So, maybe that's when we say, hey, does a guy like Kellen play? And, we pair him with, Eunice and Weston. But you want to take Tyler Adams out because he's more of the holding midfielder. So, do you throw in, Kellen and Weston in there? So there's interesting combinations that can be played depending on how Greg decides to go with the formation, whatever he goes with. So
exactly.
Yeah.
The forward line, we've got Paul, we'll just again name off the MLS players: Paul Arriola from DC United, Jesus Ferrer from FC Dallas, Jordan Morris from Seattle Sounders, and then we got everybody's favorite, Jazzy Zardes from Columbus. I got in an argument today with some friends about Zardes and how he shouldn't be on the team and they hate him because of it. Well, it's not his fault. He got called up. What's he supposed to do? Exactly. Hey, Greg, I don't think I'm good enough. I'm not going to be there. Like, come on, man. I like Jazzy Zardes, but out of those players, I don't think we see many of them step on the field. Not ahead of Pepe, not ahead of Pulisic, Weah, or Brendan Aronson. All those the MLS guys, they could come in for a few minutes at the end. I think maybe you'll see a Joshy Zardes if we need to waste some time, or Jordan Morris if we need something on the wing a little different. But I don't see them supplanting any of the other guys for major minutes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Maybe you see. I don't know. Maybe this first game you see Aronson and Pulisic playing out wide, and maybe Jazzy starts. You have to remember that Jazzy Zardes played for Greg Berhalter in Columbus. Yeah. He revived Jazzy's career when it went down the crapper at LA Galaxy. So he gave him life, and he knows Jazzy, and he offers him, a guy in the box to get on the end of stuff and can connect and combine and isn't afraid to drop down. So. Maybe Pepe just needs, kind of a break maybe after being transferred to Augsburg. So, maybe Pepe's being saved for that second game. We don't know. Again, we don't know what the lineup is going to be. But I think of the ones that probably can play from the MLS, I would guess probably Paul Arriola could have a good chance to start. In one of the 3 games, and as well as Jordan Morris, depending on how his fitness is after coming off, coming back from the ACL and not playing much at the end of MLS season. So, but yeah,
agreed. All right, man. So they got 3 games in 6 days coming up. We want 9 points. We want 9 points because we want to qualify as quick as we can. We want to get this over with. Yeah. Give me your prediction for the U.S. men's national team. Give me your prediction on how many points you think they're going to come out with at the end of this qualifying round.
Yeah. So I think they beat Honduras and they do beat El Salvador, because I think just in the climates with El Salvador and Honduras coming from warmer climates, and I just think they can take care of that. You have guys that play in the Bundesliga and MLS and such that are used to cold weather, and being from, the United States and such, they've grown up playing in this kind of weather, no matter, if they were in the Northeast, Midwest, or they played in MLS. So the question is going to be the Canadian game, right?
Yep,
so like I said, no Alphonso Davies, because Kyle Larin, can he get on the board for, Canada and some other guys they have, that's the question. For me, I think you need 9 points here, in my opinion, because if you want to qualify, hopefully in the next round of qualifications, I would say go all out and get the 9 points, because now we don't have to worry about, well, if we play Mexico and Mexico City, worried about dropping points, or we have a tough away game somewhere at some small country. If we know we can secure a top 3 spot, like, let's get this done. Because I think talking about on United States of Soccer with Jason Davis, he said like Mexico would have to get like no points this window, and someone else would have to get like no points or limited points for us to then qualify.
There's essentially the smallest chance that we qualify in this window, and it is almost impossible because Mexico will pick up points, and I forget, was it Costa Rica or whoever it was, they're going to pick up points as well.
Panama's in the 4 spot.
Might have been Panama, but it was Panama. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think the minimum right now is 7 points. We need 2 wins, the Honduras and El Salvador, but I think we need a draw in Canada. It's going to be very tough to get that. They're playing well. I really like the way they're doing. And Kyle Larin is a good, quick player. He's going to be tough. Yes, they're without Alphonso Davies, which is a big hit. But I don't see them coming away. I don't see the U.S. men's national team coming away with a win there. I think they'll get 1 point, and it's minimum 7 because you need to beat Honduras, you need to beat El Salvador, and that's what it's going to be. I will not be happy if it's anything less than 7 points. So that's my stance. Yeah. All right, buddy.
I'm shooting for 9, though. I'm high hopes here.
Yeah, you got the high hopes of those 9. That's I don't want to tell you you'll be let down, but you're probably going to end up being let down. All right, my friend Brooks, thank you so much. Very much appreciate it. Just your insight into the MLS and some of the players and the moves. It's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing as usual.
You're welcome. And looking forward to next week.
Exactly. All right, buddy. Take care.
Okay. Cheers.